I need to speak about something real quick because this is why I'm gonna say after really tapping in this week, there's one charge that we all need to focus on because we are looking at the state, and the state is not doing a good job proving any of these crimes. Right? They're not doing a good job proving any of these crimes. The problem is the way that this case is set up. I think that somebody spent a lot of time. Yeah, I think the state spent a lot of time figuring out an effective way to do what they're doing. And this is why this case is set up like a Rico in this manner. Right? They're charging people with old crimes again, all this type of stuff. I believe they did a lot of research and they made sure. This is what we about to do. Let me read count 1 of this indictment for y'all real quick. Conspiracy to violate Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act, OCGA, 1644 subsection C, right? That's important. Each person in this indictment has that count, right? So what we need to do is go and read the Georgia Code 16, Title 16, Section 4, for prohibited activities. And this is going to be legalese and wordy, but I need to read it to y'all so that I can go forward saying what I need to say. Right? So this is what it says. Section A says, well, let me go to Section C, because that's what's actually in their indictment. It should be unlawful for any person to conspire or endeavor to violate any of the previous subsection A or B of this code section. A person violates the subsection when he or she, together with one or more persons, conspires to violate any of the provisions of subsection A or B of this code section, and any of such persons commits any overt act to affect the person of the conspiracy, or he or she endeavors to violate any of the provisions in subsection A or B of this. Okay, so pretty much C is like the catch-all, right? And then if you read what A says, it should be unlawful for any person through a pattern of racketeering activity or proceeds derived therefrom to acquire or maintain directly or indirectly any interest in or control of any enterprise, real property, or personal property of any nature, including money. That's subsection A. Section B says it should be unlawful for any person employed by or associated with any enterprise to conduct or participate in, directly or indirectly, such enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity. Now, the reason we need to read this is because we need to see just how vague of a definition this is, right? We need to understand how vague of a crime this RICO Act is, right? Now, I know I probably just read it through kind of fast, and I'm not really going to like break down every word of it because I think everybody understood what I was reading. It's pretty much, it's really illegal to do anything with multiple people. That's a crime. You can get hit with a RICO. It doesn't matter how small the crime. If you're doing it with multiple people, they can hit you with a RICO. Because we have another section over here that's a definition section for this RICO. Let me read to y'all the definition of racketeering and it's really crazy how many things are considered racketeering. A racketeering activity means to commit, to attempt to commit, or to solicit, coerce, or intimidate another person to commit any crime such as which is chargeable by indictment under the laws of this state. Now, the items under the racketeering definition, there's a whole bunch of different items involving making alcohol, involving lying to the police, homicide, assault, kidnapping, prostitution, burglary, smash and grab, arson, bombs, theft, robbery, criminal reproduction, sale of recorded material, the Georgia Residential Mortgage Fraud Act, forgery, illegal use of financial transaction cards, altered ID mark, Computer Systems Protection Act, identity fraud, bribery, false statements or writings, impersonating a public officer, attempted murder, or threatening a witness in official proceedings, perjury, You can get a RICO for perjury. If you and your friends come together and say, hey, we're about to lie together in a court, you can get a RICO charge for that by law, by definition. Embracery of violation of code that, influencing a witness, tampering with evidence, intimidating a jury, or intimidation or injury of a grand jury, terroristic threat, the Georgia Firearms and Weapons Act, commerce gambling, distribution of obscene materials. You really can get a RICO for giving out porn. It's crazy. Controlled substances, dangerous drug act, marijuana, payday loans. Imagine getting a RICO case for a payday loan. It's crazy. Certain felonies involved, like removal of falsification of ID numbers. Like what? Racketeering activities shall also mean any act or threat involving murder, kidnap, gambling, arson, robbery, theft, receipt of stolen property, bribery, extortion, obstruction of justice, dealing in narcotic or dangerous drugs, dealing in securities, which is chargeable under the laws. Racketeering activities shall also mean any conduct defined as racketeering. All right, so if the feds define it as racketeering, then the state can also hit you. So when I say that this definition is vague, it essentially covers every type of crime in the state of Georgia. Anything that's considered a crime in the state of Georgia, if you and a group of people get together and do it, you can get a RICO, right? So now you heard what I just said. If you threaten to do something to somebody, you can get a RICO if there's a collection of people involved, right? So if y'all remember when Young Thug said something like, to tag wife and Lucci on Instagram and said, if I ain't like the way you dealt with your kids, I would have been killed you. Something like that falls under this RICO statute, this RICO definition. So the reason I say what I'm saying now is because there's pretty much zero chance that anybody in this case beats count one. Because nothing about the RICO even says that they need a gang. You don't need a gang. You just need a collection of people, or you need to be employee of an enterprise, which even if YSL is a record label, which they're admitting it is a record label, but when you have a record label and you have these affiliated parties committing crimes while repping it, that still would be considered a violation of this RICO Act. So it's like, wow. When you really listen to it, and we can listen over and over, and we can listen week after week, and we can listen to witness after witness, there's almost no way that they'll be able to get off of count one, the RICO count. Now, maybe somebody else might heard something different than me, but they don't, like the way that this case is set up, they only need to tie each person to one of these overt acts. If the overt act is you threatening somebody on the internet, if that's an overt act, then that's it. They only need one. Let me pull up what type of, now let's talk about the, because we just established that there's almost, okay, let's see. It's the questions that they asked the jury, majority yes or no. But the main question will be, did Jeffrey help in Friends, and yes or no? The thing about, see, now I'm curious to know how much of this RICO statute are the jury being explained. You know what I'm saying? Are they like supposedly the judge is going to tell the jury like how to deliberate and like to understand the law and all that. But is he going to explain all of this, or is he just going to read? Like, what is he going to read to the jury to help them better understand what the law actually says about a RICO statute? I don't know if he, like, it's a lot to read to a jury. And even if he does read it, are they going to remember it? Because in a lot of people's mind, this is just a gang case. And if the state establishes that they were a gang, then we need to convict. With officers like Gaither coming up there saying, I identified them as a gang a long time ago, and they were operating like a gang. They just weren't operating like a national gang. They was just affiliated, and they by definition, we noticed them as a gang in like 2012, 2013. and they had a name. So if the jury in their mind is looking at count one as we need to establish that these people are a gang, and once we trick ourselves into believing that this is a gang, then we can deduce that they have been conspiring to do what gangs do, which is murder, rob, attempted murder, fight people, stuff like that. I know that the judge is going to read how to apply it. I mean, how is he going to read it in a way that the jury actually can retain it? Because there's 68 counts, right? So he's going to really have to read the definitions and how to apply the law to each one of the counts to so that they understand what's going on. But how are they going to retain all that information is what I'm saying. Like, how do you explain it to them in an effective way so that they know, okay, this is what's happening. Okay, all right, I know how to look at the threat on the internet. That's not really Rico activity. That's something else. Or I know how to handle Young Thug gave his homeboys a rental car and then they went to go shoot somebody. Like something like that. If the jury believes that Young Thug actually handed those keys over, because if y'all remember, I don't know if y'all seen, it was a while ago this came out. I think Kenneth Copeland was saying something like, Young Thug gave them a car. He was in another car, and after they did the shooting, the Big Nut shooting, then they pulled off and went to meet Thug and let him know, hey, it's done now. I don't know if they told Kenneth Copeland to say it like that so that it was like Young Thug put the hit out. But if he goes in front of the jury and says that, how are you going to erase that from their mind that, yes, Young Thug rented the car and they came back and reported to him, hey, the job is done. You would need somebody else that's involved to say he's lying about that. But we know Shannon Stillwell is not going to get up on the stand and say he's lying about that because you as a defendant, you really don't never want to get up there and have to testify because you will for sure mess yourself up. So really, if Kenneth Copeland is the only one who was there that's actually going to get up there and testify, how are you going to get the jury? Like even if the defense comes up there and makes them believe that this man is lying about this, if he details that murder with enough detail, there's nothing you're going to be able to say to him to make the jury forget what he said about that murder. Right? Give me a second. I wanted to see how much time you can get for Rico. The Georgia Act also has a wider range of underlying crimes than the federal act. Violation of the act, which provides for a prison term of 5 to 20 years. Okay. So the reason I wanted to read that is because, so if we're looking at essentially everybody having to deal with that count one, right? We are looking at for the 6 people on trial, we're looking at a minimum, if you want to predict, we're looking at a minimum of 5 years for this situation. Maximum of 20. But when you start compounding it, like for people who have multiple felonies, the sentencing guidelines goes up. When you look at stuff like people who have multiple counts, the people who have like the murder associated with their name, for the people who have armed robbery associated with this case, there's a lot of different sentencing outcomes. I know that Fonnie Willis was for sure saying she wanted to max everybody out. If she could, she would give them all life. That's what she said. I don't know why she felt like everybody need to get life for being in a gang. Like if I wasn't one of the people that murdered somebody, why you want to give me life? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I might took something out of somebody's house one time, but because I had YSL in my name, you want to give me life for that? Like, come on, man. But anyway, so that was a cold-blooded situation right there. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about it. I'm telling you, if you just read the Rico statute, which is Georgia Code 1644, not 44, 1614-4, 16-14-4. Go read that. And you tell me what you think. Also, 16-14-3 will give you all the definitions that you need to understand what what these things mean. What's racketeering? What's an enterprise? What's civil forfeiture proceeding? What's a criminal proceeding? You can read all this stuff so that it explains to you what you will actually need to know to understand a RICO. Yep. So here we go. So they already, time served, they've been locked up for almost 2 years now. And most of the time you get double the credit when you're in a local jail. So, they're coming up on 2 years, so that's like 4 years down already. So, by the time this trial is over, if Thug or somebody like gets the minimum, they can pretty much come home immediately because time served in that local jail.